it's Jeff.
Hello.
Oh, it's too high. Low? Yeah, now it's too high. These things sure are finicky, I tell you what. Shook-a-da-boop. Shook-a-book-a-doop. Shoopity-boop. Boop. Doopy-doop-boop-boop. Man, what a day.
We might be live. Hang on.
Might be.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, we're live. All right.
We're live, pal. You ever see that WWE blooper? It's great. JR is interviewing Sid Vicious. And Sid Vicious is doing this like promo, like a generic like roided up. I'm like, oh, when I get you in the ring. Sorry, I messed up. Can we do it again? We're live, pal. We're live, pal.
I have not seen that one, and I would like to now.
Great. And like the Young Bucks, they have that YouTube show. Like instead of saying action, they just say we're live, pal.
That's good.
Oh boy.
All right, I'm good. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right,
dude.
Let's just do this thing. 5, 4, 3, 2. It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this. Welcome to the GamesBeat Decides podcast. This is the podcast where we decide everything about the world of games so you don't have to think for yourself. I'm your host, Jeffrey Grubb. With me is
Mike Minotti.
I was just going to say the next line on my script here, which is, say your name, Mike Minotti. But you already did that, so yeah.
I do what you tell me.
Yeah, I'm happy for that at least. In today's episode, news and games. Whoa. I don't know. It was a week though, right?
Yeah, another one. It turns out.
Yeah. We're gonna just keep having them. I think. I don't think we're gonna escape this whole thing.
I feel guilty too. Be like, oh, this week was really hard on me when it's people like talking about serious things that need to be discussed and addressed.
Yep.
I'm like, this makes me tired.
Right? Yeah. So then you get guilt on top of everything else. It's great.
Awful. Oh God.
Yeah. No, I feel the same way though. It's like I'm like, this is emotionally draining for me, a person not involved and just watching from the sideline. But it is. We'll talk about it in news if people are wondering what we're even talking about. But we'll get to that. But it also just on top of everything else, like looking at the COVID-19 charts, Mike, it's just like, it's just going back up. We're sitting.
No good.
Yeah, it's good. One thing. And like, my wife's a teacher. They're trying to figure out what they're going to do. And today, among all this, like the Denver public schools, it's like, no, we're going back full time all day. No more remote learning at all. We're just going to bring everyone back.
Just plowing ahead anyways, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's frustrating. So yeah, but well, I'm sure we'll touch on all this stuff. There's video games, and we'll talk about those. First, though, I want to thank everybody for joining us. You can get more from me and Mike at GamesBeat.com. If you have something to share with us, email the podcast at GamesPlusPodcast@VentureBeat.com. That's the plus sign. Thank you to Carlos Ain, who is Insane in the Rain Music on YouTube for the use of our theme song. And you can if you're listening to the show on the player widget on the website, or if you're watching on YouTube or Twitch, you could subscribe to the audio version of this show on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and more. Spotify as well. And if you like the show, rate us on Apple Podcast or whatever you're listening on, and tell a friend. All right, Mike, let's hop into the news. Let's just do this thing. So first up, the headline I have here is Ubisoft addresses sexual misconduct allegations. That doesn't begin to tell the half of it. Over the last week, beginning with last weekend, really, just dozens and dozens, and now it's over 250 allegations, of varying stripes and colors of sexual misconduct in and around games. The list really got started with primarily Twitch streamers and YouTube content creators primarily, but there was sprinkled in there. There were also a few. I mean, it's hard to even remember, but it's every single person every single job in this industry kind of did not go untouched. Everyone, there's someone. If you were a journalist, yeah, there's some journalists that were alleged to have abused someone either emotionally or sexually. People that make games, and it's hard to know where to begin. It's hard to know what to do. It was hard to even write about. It was happening so fast, and there were so many names. We didn't even really know how to cover it.
Right.
So it's
there were some I guess hot spots like Chris Abalone and Ubisoft stick out.
Right. So Chris Abalone, who's a writer, well known for his work on a bunch of stuff. He's written some games that I really enjoy the writing of. He was basically, the allegations are that he preys on younger women by getting them drunk at conventions and then waiting until they are so drunk that he can take them back to his hotel room and then perhaps take advantage of them, allegedly. There was multiple people who came out and said this happened, multiple people who said they witnessed this type of behavior from him, and he has since, I think, so much as he's apologized and addressed that there is an issue there, and the people that he's worked with at Techland on Dying Light 2 and on another RPG project, they've cut ties. Waylanders, thank you. So so it's a hotspot. That one's it's easy to be here's a bunch of credible people saying something happened, and there's been some consequence to that. But like I said, there's every single thing you can imagine here, and really what this speaks to, right, is there's a systemic problem. It's happening because we have created an environment, and society's created this environment, but within gaming we've repeated this environment where people feel they can get away with these behaviors, and holding people accountable is the first step to that, but it feels like what's the next step? How do we move forward and create an environment that it does not perpetuate these behaviors? It's challenging, but it must happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's some not fast solutions, but obvious ones like hiring more women and more diversity and better HR that is more about protecting employees and less about protecting companies. But again, a lot of these things, I could say them, people need to do them. So
yeah,
it's rough. And I mean, the Ubisoft, they had so many different allegations coming out, and that always struck me, because I don't know about you, but I was always kind of under the impression that among the big publishers,
Same.
Ubisoft was one of the better places.
My exact sentiment, yes.
Mm-hmm. And then it's oh, actually, they have a lot of scumbags there and a lot of problems with this, and it's awful. And even they've addressed it, but it wasn't. It's always silly, judging the apology and how they address it, right? Because it matters, but it doesn't matter as much as what actually happens. But still, you get such a feeling from those things and how they address things.
Right.
The feeling I got from the Ubisoft one was really lukewarm. There's no soul in it,
Mm-hmm.
And if there's a time to maybe inject a little soul or emotion into something, right? I want the Ben and Jerry's Black Lives Matter pose.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Not the very typical using the word allegation 50 times.
Right. And they do that for the same reason we do, because we're in a position where if we say something and it turns out not to be accurate, we'll get sued. And this enables us to talk about it in a way where it's we are speaking to it, but without the risk of giving a person the chance to just sue everyone who is talking about it. The Ubisoft thing, it is, I'm not going to read it. You can read it. It's on their news.ubisoft.com website if you want to go find it yourself. But yeah, there's no name attached to it.
I mean, you can imagine what it says without saying it.
Right, yeah.
Reading it, I mean.
Right, Yves Guillemot's name's not attached. It's just a kind of like a news bulletin with no author. It doesn't seem like, it seems like it is, the corporate PR take on this. And it feels like what people are saying is that sort of reaction to these allegations is the reason that these things continue to happen over time, is that this isn't enough. It isn't thinking about the people actually involved. It isn't treating human beings as resources for a business and not as humans themselves. And it's and Ubisoft, it was dozens of allegations just of people that work there, and now not everything is to the level of sexual assault, but like Ashraf Ismail, who was the creative director on Assassin's Creed, he was accused of infidelity, but the emotional abuse that went along with not telling the people that he was in relationships with that he was married, and the emotional abuse of of not giving the person the chance to consent to being in something that involves infidelity. That is, there's a spectrum here, but we don't need to like try to figure this out. It's just, we know that is a person in a position of power taking advantage of it. He used like his work address to say, "Oh, if you're going to send me something, send it to my work address at Ubisoft. I don't take mail at my house." It is a person in power taking advantage of that power, and that's the real issue. And the systems have to be built to hold people accountable. And I think you're right about putting more people, a bigger variety of people into those positions in the first place. Absolutely. And unions would probably help too. Probably.
Yeah, so. Right. Especially in higher roles, exec roles, and stuff like that. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
it's
absolutely.
great hiring people in entry level positions or mid level, but more bosses and stuff like that.
But personally, thank you to everyone who did speak up. We were complaining up front about how it's draining. We can't imagine what it's like for you.
It's weird because I don't want to say that I think maybe you feel the same way. I don't feel sheltered from it, but we work remotely our entire career in this industry, right? Like we are not working in these hotspots or in big offices or anything like that. Like I'm in Ohio, you were in Ohio, now you're in Colorado. Like I've been in middle of suburbia the entire time.
Right.
I've been in this industry, and I used to always kind of regret that, like, oh, I'm not part of these big like offices, and I don't see people. And now it's like, man, it kind of sounds like like in the IGN stuff, right? Like, like that's again, it's like it's not necessary. There's some sexual assaults, like bad behavior there, but just like reading the stuff, I'm like, I'm just kind of glad.
Yeah, it just sounds like
about that.
Yeah, dehumanizing behavior, as well, and it's they're all in the same family of harassment. But yeah, that's I felt the same way. I was like, it is. I am happy for the way that things turned out for me, because it's like I get to just. I work from home. I set up my whole life exactly the way I want it to be, and I just assume that people are doing good on the other side of emails. I don't have to like worry that I am associated with behavior because I work at a place and I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know what to speak up. And it's like, man, that would have been like, I hope I would have done the right thing, but I don't know. And it seems like in a lot of cases people didn't know and they didn't speak up. And
everybody likes to imagine they'd run into the fire until they feel the flames, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like, and based on the evidence we have, most people are running away from these things or ignoring them or pretending they're not happening. And there's some that's just the way humans are built in a lot of cases.
Self-preservation and stuff like that, because then you're saying, oh, my job's in trouble, and it sounds awful.
Right.
And again, I like to think I wouldn't worry about my job in that situation, but bills to pay,
right,
kids to feed, and stuff.
Yeah, in a place like San Francisco where it's super expensive and you're already being underpaid. Yeah, a lot of people said that they felt afraid for their jobs all the time, and that was part of the harassment. So yeah. It was like, okay, it seems like since a lot of these allegations in regards to IGN, they've really cleaned themselves up. Tina Amini is and John Davison over there.
To be clear, everything I've seen is that the current IGN team is awesome, and I know a lot of them, and they are awesome. Yeah,
and it seems like they did a lot.
IGN's great right now.
It seems like they did a lot of that changing on their own, right? Without a lot of like the stuff coming out first. It's some of it did. Steve Butts was a big black eye for them. But they seem to make the right moves, and that's nice. I'm glad to see that.
Right.
All right. It's hard to wrap up that stuff.
Right. But, I mean, I wish I had a nice bow to put on top of it, but things suck. Hope they get better, and it's good we're talking about it, I guess.
Yeah, and yeah.
I don't guess. I don't know. Why do I say I guess? It is.
No. Yeah. I understand.
It's training.
Okay. So we're gonna move on to the rest of the news. The rest of the stuff is mostly, there's some bad news in there, but nothing to match that. So let's just get right into it. Let's start with Mike Minotti, Mike Min, Minotti.
Mike
Min Minotti.
I'm trying to think, should it be Minotti or Min Minotti? Is that too many mins?
I think I like the Min Minotti. Yeah.
Minotti.
So I feel like if you call someone a noodle lover, it's kind of offensive, but that's what Nintendo calls their Min character from ARMS, basically made out of ramen. So yeah, this was the Smash reveal that the first character in the second character pack, and it's Min from ARMS. And they said it was going to be a character from ARMS, and now we know exactly which one. What was your reaction, Mike?
So like, I figured it wasn't going to just be Spring Boy or Spring Girl, whatever the names are. Like nobody really likes those characters; they're very generic. So now I actually almost thought it was going to be like a situation where it's like a bunch of them and they all have the same moveset. You can pick which character model it is, like kind of like the Bowser Jr. thing. Especially because of the way they I thought it was weird that they said like, yeah, it's gonna be a characters from ARMS, but you don't know which one. Like never before have they been like, yeah, it's gonna be a character from Fatal Fury, but it's a surprise who. So like that kind of had me on that wrong path. But if you're going to do like a single character, I think I figured it would always be either like a Min or the I can't remember the other name, but yeah, like Min was certainly on the short list. So I wasn't too surprised. I think she has a good character design. I think what they showed of her moveset is interesting. Although again, like the moveset is basically it's a lot of just usual ARMS stuff, right? Like a lot of the ARMS characters are basically kind of moving the same with different like weights,
right?
And a few
stretchy arms techniques. And stuff. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, it looks cool. If nothing else, like the ARMS soundtrack is great, so I'm kind of excited that like those songs will be in the game.
Yeah, so, without a doubt. They also revealed that they brought, like always, some more Mii costumes, including Vault Boy, and like the characters from Splatoon, the girls. I can't remember their names, but Splatoon.
Yeah, it's the team.
Yeah,
it's the
Marie
like, DJ team from the first game.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, it's I don't know, that stuff looked cool, but it's just. I guess, how are you feeling about this first batch of stuff from the new DLC?
Yeah, I feel pretty good. I mean, it's not like as crazy or sexy as Banjo-Kazooie or even Joker from Persona, but I always thought it was a little weird that there was an ARMS character in there originally. So I think getting one in there now is good. I think she's gonna play well. I'm kind of excited to. I haven't played too much Smash Bros. Since the pandemic started, really, right? Because it's a couch co-op game, so not co-op, but it's a couch game.
No,
so,
I hear you. Yeah,
but like this will be an excuse to like kind of load that up again and have some fun with Smash Up, especially now that like I'm starting to not play Animal Crossing every single day, so I can maybe go for a little Smash.
Even with the update there, I didn't put it in the news, but there's a new update coming. You could swim.
Yeah, I mean, no, I'm still gonna play Animal Crossing, but like,
same.
I have the 5-star island now. I have. I like the way my island looks. There's nothing except for maybe trying to get like some more stuff for the museum. There's nothing crazy I'm trying to accomplish in Animal Crossing anymore. So I'm not like doing my like daily chores, if you would, quite as much.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. All right. Up next is The Last of Us Part 2 sold more than 4 million copies, and I believe that was through its first 3 days. That makes it the fastest selling PlayStation 4 exclusive from PlayStation Studios. I think that's all the right qualifiers. It might be the fastest selling like PlayStation first party game ever, because I'm pretty sure that the PS4 games have been that way for a while. Like
I'm pretty sure they're already saying that about like God of War and Spider-Man. So
right.
Be true here too.
Exactly. So yes, and those were the ones that this game outsold. God of War was at 3.1 million through the same period of time. Spider-Man at 3.3 million. This is a big launch for them. A big success. It's every bit the blockbuster that they were hoping it would be, and it turned out that's the case. Obvious things here are it's been 2 years since Spider-Man came out. There's also been a recent surge in PlayStation 4 sales because of the coronavirus, and people are still kind of there's no movies still. People aren't going out to the movies. People are spending money on other entertainment, and video games are still benefiting from that. So I think this all helped push this up to 4 million. But still, I think regardless, this would have succeeded.
But Jeff, didn't people read the Metacritic user reviews?
You know what? That's what I don't get it, right? They're faking this. This is fake news, right? Yeah.
Yeah, gotta be.
Man, those people are really weird. This is the weirdest one yet.
I mean, we'll talk about it later, but like I'm like 10 hours into that game or more, and I do not know what people are mad about.
Right.
I'm kind of hoping I find out soon, because I'm like, what are people so like getting so emotional about here?
Yep. Well, yeah, you're right. We'll talk about it later. But yeah, there are those some weird folks out there. Yeah, I don't know. This is kind of what I expected. Do you think that this is going to end up doing like 15 million copies or 20 million? Could get up to like the Grand Theft Auto 5 numbers or anything like that?
If it gets a boost from PlayStation 5, right? Like if a lot of people buy PlayStation 5 and then for some reason maybe they didn't have a PlayStation 4 or they weren't playing for a while, and then they're like, okay, now I'll buy Last of Us, maybe.
Yep.
So I guess you're asking, is it ultimately going to sell more copies than like God of War did overall? And
sure. Yeah.
I'm not sure. My kind of interesting question is, let's say like things were reversed and Last of Us Part 2 is the game that came out like 3 years ago, and then Uncharted 4 just came out right now. Do you think it would have like taken this record?
Yeah.
You think there's something? You think it was just kind of a matter of the timing with how many consoles?
The timing, and I think the build-up of a Naughty Dog sequel, there was a lot of build-up for Uncharted 4, but if it had been even more, like an even longer period of time between the last Uncharted and this, it would have been at a fever pitch. It would have been even higher, and it would have, I think Uncharted 4, maybe not like 4 million, maybe like 3.9, but I still think it would have been right there, for sure.
I agree.
All right, so that Lockhart, that Xbox Lockhart, I've been saying it's real. People are finding more evidence of it. A leaked document hints at another next-gen Xbox, is the headline from The Verge. And basically, people are just finding documentation from Microsoft that lists, like, there's the Xbox Series X in this code, but then right below that is, Xbox Lockhart. And it's coming. It feels like they're still going to announce it in August. That was they were going to announce it in June. They moved that to August. But yeah, it's real and it's coming. And I guess, the wording around it now, or what people are thinking now, is that it's going to be like a 4 terabyte machine, or a 4 teraflop machine, excuse me, that is built to play games, the next gen games, at 1080p instead of 4K. And to me, that makes a lot of sense. What do you think?
I mean, it makes sense. Like, this is their way to make like a $250 new system, right? Like that's got to be the goal. Maybe 300. Like, this reminds me kind of like Sony used to when the new system was coming out. Like when PlayStation 2 came out, here's the PlayStation 1, like ONE. And it was like, look, this is like the cheap way to have a PlayStation, but it's like still kind of new and exciting. And the same thing with PlayStation 2. They stopped doing that. This kind of reminds me of this. Like, this is kind of just like a step above like a Xbox Series X, Xbox One X. Got these names.
Yep.
Holy crap. So, I mean, I think there's a little risk of confusion here.
Yeah.
Because it's like, what is Because like Lockhart almost sounds like more of a next gen name than Series X does.
Yeah, I'm sure when it comes, it's going to be Series S probably or whatever.
Right.
That's not less confusing.
I thought the whole idea of Series X was that's the series. So Lockhart's not among the X series of Xboxes.
Right.
I can't even say it.
I don't know if that's what they mean. I think that, like, man, you're right. I don't know.
Is it not what they mean?
I think it's just what
told me they meant.
I think
when I said the name was stupid, that's how people defended it. Because there's going to be a whole series of Xbox X's.
No, I think there's going to be a whole series of Xboxes, and then the letter will designate like where in the series it is, because it's they're what, we don't need to talk about this. This is their problem. I'm not going to figure it out for them. They'll explain it, and if it's dumb, it's dumb. You're right. You're right. I don't want. Yeah. So yeah, it's gonna come out. It'll be called something, and to me, like there is like a lot of potential here. I think for confusion, but I think there's a lot of potential for really like strong sales too. Because if you think about it, like the system should be significantly less expensive to make. Maybe not super less expensive, because it should still need to use the same CPU, I think, and the same SSD. And then the same architecture overall, to ensure that it can play next gen games, even if it's not, even if the GPU isn't up to snuff. But the GPU could be really cheap compared to what they're putting in the Series X. But you got to think about it; they could also not include a controller, because, or they could like make a version without a controller, right? That is significantly cheaper. And because you just sell it to people that bought the Xbox One, the original Xbox One, and the reason they haven't bought an Xbox One X yet is because they're like, well, I don't have a 4K TV. We'll be like, hey, if you still don't have a 4K TV, just get this thing. It's going to play all those games. It's going to play them at 60 frames per second. They're just going to be at 1080p, and that's like, to me, that's there's something there. And you can just use the controller you already have, and it's like if you get it down to like 200 without a controller, that I think there's a lot of potential.
Does it still have a disk drive?
You know what? I don't know. That's a good question. I there might be some reporting on this somewhere, but I'm not sure. I think it probably does because you're trying to sell to people who are upgrading right now. It's okay. I think it does.
Yeah. Do you think so? Do they just like is like the Xbox One X still going to be there and be like the even cheaper thing, or do you think like they're going to really scale that back and try to not maybe have that on like store shelves as much?
Yeah, I think that
like,
one.
Here are the two options.
Yeah, I think it phases out. Yeah, I think they phase it out. Yeah. I think it makes sense. I mean, I'm sure they'll sell through their stock, but once that's gone, I don't see them continuing to make that because I mean, first of all, the Lockhart's going to be cheaper to make, I think, than the Xbox One X even at this point, unless they did a revision of the One X and called it a third thing. Yeah, I don't know, but I would guess that they just phase that out. You know, but yeah, I mean, this is like a price play. It's to like ensure like, oh, we're gonna have the most powerful system, but we're also gonna have the most affordable system and all that stuff. But I think for our audience, for us, it's still we wouldn't consider this. I would go for the more powerful one for sure.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I think we'll find out about this in August though. So if people are wanting to know for sure, just wait until then. That could still change, but I heard recently again that it was still August. All right. More Microsoft news. It is it shut down Mixer out of nowhere.
Yeah. God, that was this week too. Man.
Yeah, that was this week. At least in the last 7 days, I guess. Yeah, they shut down Mixer. So we woke up one day, and well, I mean, Dean got the embargo, so we knew it was happening, but it was still wild. Yeah, they're selling the business side of things off to Facebook Gaming. And if you're on Mixer and you could just sort of, I guess, I haven't really looked into it, but I guess you could just sort of migrate to Facebook Gaming and continue there. Microsoft is keeping the patents that like Mixer and then before that Beam.pro is what it was called. Those patents for streaming, Microsoft's keeping those things. And yeah, like they're just getting out of the business. And this is like just like a year ago, not even. They were giving $50 million to Ninja to come stream exclusively on Mixer, and Shroud got like 10-30 million, I don't know, a lot of money as well, and a bunch of other people. There's a bunch of other people involved in those deals to get exclusively on Mixer, and Mixer wasn't growing. Its overall viewership hours was flat year over year compared to like.
Isn't that insane?
That is what, right? It's like
spending that much money and like
nothing.
I wonder what like the long-term ramifications of that are going to be, just in terms of like the idea that like these streamers are like
right
worth, I don't know what, like worth something, but like worth like what do you do with them? Like, are they, I guess they're good for advertising, obviously, but it's just bizarre that like if people supposedly care so much about this person and this brand, like why is that not help? So like there was nobody bigger than a Ninja, and that didn't move the needle. Then it's like, well, then nothing can.
I think you're right. So I think it's like there was an audience that followed those people over to Mixer and continued to watching them. And it was a significant sized audience. It was like pretty close to what they had on Twitch. The whole problem here though is that none of that filtered out into the rest of Mixer. People weren't suddenly like, oh, Mixer is my platform, that's where I go to discover new people. They were still going back to Twitch, and that's where they would find new stuff. But if Ninja was on, they would go watch Ninja. But it just was not helping the platform grow at all. And so it's this wild thing where I think you're right. People are going to look at this, the people that are signing these big deals to get exclusive content on their thing, and be like, what aren't we understanding here? Why didn't this help? And I think what it says is you can only count on their audience coming over. That audience is not like, there's something else happening on Twitch where Twitch has reached this critical mass where people just go to it just to like go to Twitch and see what's on. And you can't buy your way into that by paying a couple of streamers a lot of money to come do exclusively on your thing. It's something else.
This is kind of have you thinking like Twitch is it. Like Twitch is going to be the thing for like the far foreseeable future now. Like,
yeah. I mean,
if this didn't, I mean, and like Mixer seemed well liked by a lot of people who used it
mm-hmm.
and hosted on it, and like it certainly it had backing from Microsoft. It had these big like news making deals and stuff, and it just didn't take. So it's hard to imagine like what can like things like Facebook gaming and YouTube gaming. They're working and they're growing for what they are, but it's not like it's offering something different than Twitch is really,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, I think so. And YouTube will continue to have its like on-demand video stuff, just completely own that space, while Twitch owns the live space. And Facebook gaming you're right, has been growing, and it's been growing like 200% year over year. So it's some impressive stuff, and it was bigger than Mixer. And these are according to figures that some of that stuff's got to be self-reported because it's the number, like they're looking at the number on the thing, but it's from Stream Elements, I think. And they would track this stuff, and they would see, Facebook gaming is growing. It's like, how much can you trust Facebook's numbers? That's been a conversation for a long time. But let's say that stuff is real. It's still, I don't think it was for the same kinds of games that were popular on Twitch. I think my understanding is that mostly like mobile stuff was like really popular on Facebook gaming, and that makes sense. It's like a place where that kind of audience could grow. Does that, and when Ninja and Shroud were given the option to sign big deals with Facebook gaming, according to the reporting, they turned it down, and now they're just free agents. They're going to go where they're going to go.
I can't imagine they're hurting for very much money right now.
Right. I would have done the same thing if I were them. So yeah, I mean, I guess the bottom line here is Facebook gaming is not going to like replace Mixer on the Xbox UI or anything like that. Microsoft's not like, oh, you're gonna actually just come be our Mixer on our thing. I think obviously Microsoft's like, this, we know this didn't work. Now we know. We've spent a bunch of money to find out a really tough lesson that you couldn't buy your way into the space, but now we know, and now we don't have to try anymore. And we're gonna cut our losses. And I think that might have meant that like some people, a lot of people that were like building up their community on Mixer got cut off suddenly without knowing this was going to happen. And there were reports that a lot of employees didn't know, although I'm not sure exactly where that came from. And so yeah, but they know not to try this anymore. Just back off and go with Twitch and build a really good support for Twitch and YouTube into the next Xbox instead. And that's, it's better than trying to drag Mixer out for years, right? Like this was better than that.
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, I know, people are always going to be upset. I don't know. Like it's always going to suck.
Yeah, it was inevitable though. Yeah. So just rip the Band-Aid off.
I'm sure someday within the next year or so, we're going to wake up one day and it's like, hey, Stadia doesn't exist anymore either.
Right. Yeah. And it's like, but I'm glad they did it now before the new Xbox though, right? Because it's like you've come up with a new Xbox and you build Mixer into it, and then you have to like rip that stuff out and put new stuff in. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably part. I think once they realize like this Mixer is not going to be a part of like the Xbox Series X UI, it's like, all right then.
Yeah.
And they were pushing it pretty hard on Xbox One for a while, right? Like talking about that stuff constantly, but did not take.
No, it did not. All right, so we got some other stuff happening over this last week in terms of just game reveals or new previews, not E3 involved and stuff. Marvel's Avengers was one of the biggest ones. Cyberpunk was the other one. But let's talk about Marvel's Avengers first. Did you watch any of this?
I did watch a bit of it, not all of it.
What was
enough to get the flavor. My opinion was, I think I was kind of defending this game a bit last year at E3.
Yeah.
And now I'm kind of coming around to the other side a little bit. More so than anything, it's just like the gameplay doesn't look very like there's much going on. It like people are saying it kind of just looks like Marvel Ultimate Alliance, but like with kind of AAA production values, maybe. But like it's basically just like a beat 'em up almost, but without too many. I mean, maybe there's got to be more to it than what we see. But like, and there's like not a lot of like good weight to hitting things like Thor's like hitting people with his hammer, and there's like this thunk sound, like a hollow piece of metal is like crashing on the floor. It's like it's a thunk, and I'm like, that doesn't seem what Mjolnir's. Oh gosh, I can't say the hammer. The hammer should sound like Mjolnir.
There you go.
So
I think you're right.
I don't know. I thought it was. I mean, it seems like. I mean, I don't think they can be happy because it seems like the response from a lot of people was lukewarm. Yeah,
I mean, it seems like it could come out and be an Anthem, I think is the problem. Like it could come out and maybe there is something fun in there, but it's going to come down to I agree that the gameplay looks boring. It does. Imran Khan, former Game Informer writer and freelancer, said he heard reports from people who have been testing it that it is boring, and I believe it. But it's, I think it's going to come down to, I think if it is boring to play, and and that stuff comes together in the final weeks, always with development, that stuff could get tightened up, and they could find a lot of the fun that they knew was always there by just tuning things up and getting it right. But I still think this game, based on what we've seen now, is it's going to live and die on how good of a Diablo it is. Is it fun to progress? Is it fun to dress up your character? Is it fun to get new gear? Is the gear meaningful? Is the gear meaningful enough that you do want to run these things over and over? And even if there's like a lot of stages, how different is that content? Is it just going to be a lot of aim robots, which is what they showed, as the enemies? Yeah. If that's the case, people are just going to bounce off, and it's going to be an Anthem, and that's rough.
You David, you even mentioned story, because I
don't have any faith in it.
I don't faith in it. It's right, because I'm looking, I'm like, yeah, that certainly seems like a Marvel comic book story.
Yeah, and it seems like a glorified tutorial. It really does. And I think you could play through the whole thing by yourself, and I'm sure there will be narrative elements, as you go through these online missions, even if you are by yourself. But the thing that they're showing, that where it's like, you're playing through a story as a character, and there's stuff happening in a day, all this stuff. To me, that just seems like it is the table setting, and once you're through that, you're gonna forget about it, and it's really gonna just be running these missions over and over. So we'll see. The problem with taking something like Marvel Ultimate Alliance and making it, closer to AAA, which is that you could see it in the evidence of the game itself. It's expensive to make a lot of content, so you either have to cut corners, which it looks like they did. It just doesn't look great. It doesn't look like as good as Spider-Man or any of the recent modern games. And then it's also hard to make enough content so there's enough variety. And we definitely felt that even through the stages, it's just one aim robot after another that either were exactly the same or looked really close. Which I guess that makes sense. You're fighting things off an assembly line, but it's not fun when you're playing the game.
We'll see. Yeah, I mean, so Anthem was kind of hurt a lot by high expectations. Maybe Marvel's Avengers will be helped by low expectations.
Good point. We'll see. Yeah, maybe. Then Cyberpunk, which I watched that as well. I'm ready to play the game. It looks really good. I just want to. I'm starting to be like, hey, this could be like a Deus Ex sort of game, one of the recent, the modern Deus Ex games in an open world. And I hope that it really deals with the ramifications of that, right? There's you can approach things any way you want, but as soon as you put that in an open world where it's like, well, what if I want to walk away from this entire thing and go get engaged in some other gang that has nothing to do with this and see what happens? Does the game account for that stuff? I hope it does. That's kind of where my expectations are set now, though. If it doesn't do that stuff, then I think they, it's hard to say, but I think they failed, because that's what they are seeming to sell me right now as I watch these early previews. But I don't know. What do you think? I know you kind of watched it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think it looks at it, and kind of going back, this is another game with high expectations, right? And you're sort of talking about that, and maybe that's what is maybe going to hurt it. And I don't know. I mean, it looks good. I'm trying to figure out if it's my jam or not. And it's hard because I used to like these kind of games more. I liked that first Deus Ex reboots and stuff like that. But lately, I don't know.
Is it just the styling, the setting? What?
Well, let's say literally the Cyberpunk thing.
Right.
Really.
It's run its course.
And, it's run its course. So I don't know. I'm not trying to sound down on it, but I'm not excited about it for whatever reason.
Yeah,
I'm sure. Even though I'm sure it'll be good. More than anything else, I'm like, oh, this is the next game from the Witcher 3 guys. That should be cool.
Yeah, and I'm ready to see their quests at the very least, just to see what those quests look like. Yeah, that game's coming out in November 19th. Could get delayed again, though. Who knows? Crash Bandicoot 4, out of nowhere.
Here we go.
Where'd this come from?
Out of nowhere. What could it be? Oh, man.
We talked about it a bit last week, so we don't have to go over it too much. We didn't. You're right. We didn't. We would never. I don't know. You happy? It looks good.
Yeah, I think it looks great. I like that I like that it's mostly looks like the the older Crash Bandicoot games with like
Yeah.
some fun things here and there. Like there's like different masks that give you some different abilities, like flipping gravity and stuff like that. I think the art looks good. I think the humor seems to be pretty spot on. I kind of like that joke at the end. It's like, well, how many times have you dealt with Cortex? Three seems like way more than that. Like I get it.
Yeah.
They're making fun of the other Crash Bandicoot games that
Yep,
people don't like.
that's that was a good joke. I was happy to see that, and it also signifies to the fans what this game is trying to go for, and I think they're smart to do that.
Did you see people like there's some people like mad about Crash Bandicoot's look, and I'm like, wait, does he look different than he did in the Insane Trilogy?
I didn't
guess
see
he
that. I
does a
saw you
little
getting
bit.
mad about it, so I was like,
so
okay.
maybe it wasn't actually that. Maybe it's me getting mad something that wasn't really a thing.
You know what? But I always find that if I go look for it, it's there. I think most people that like on my feed have pretty good taste, so I just didn't see it from them. But yeah, I mean, I think I heard before it was released. Before the trailer was released, I saw some people definitely commenting on like, oh, he looks different in this box art or whatever, or in this promotional art. And the connotation there was in a negative way, and I didn't get it. I thought it looks cool. I think it looks cool. So yeah, I people are dumb. People have bad taste. Turns out, yeah. I don't know. But you are happy with it, right? You think it looks good?
Yeah, happy. I'm really stoked. This is one of the games that I'm looking most forward to now for the rest of the year.
Excellent.
Got to play it on a PlayStation console. This is one of the things where they haven't announced the Switch version. I bet it'll come later, like Insane Trilogy did. But like, I don't know, playing Crash Bandicoot or anything but Sony is still weird to me.
No, I feel you. Rocksteady. This was a report out of Eurogamer that next Rocksteady game is a Suicide Squad game, and I know you're just ecstatic, Mike. I know you're a huge. Yeah. You don't care about the comics or any of that, the source material. You just love that movie so much.
I like to call this the final straw, right? Because like there's a lot of things this week that were stressful and bad, and this is obviously not a big deal, but it is the straw.
The camel's back really just snapped in half. Yeah.
It's like, oh god, and I don't know.
It could be good. It could be, but
more than anything, I feel like if it's Suicide Squad. I mean, again, I don't know very much about these characters. But like, I feel like this is basically just going to be kind of like the Arkham games, but you're like Harley Quinn and a few other people instead, right?
I mean, that's what I would want if that's what.
That's why, like, I guess, like, I always like the idea of like, oh, maybe they do like a Superman game or a Green Lantern game because I'm like,
no, I would prefer really that.
Different.
Yeah, but if we're getting a Suicide Squad game, from Rocksteady, I want it to just be the Arkham games with the Suicide. But it's like I would have preferred, a Superman game. Absolutely,
it's gonna be the Arkham games, but like instead of like doing detective stuff, they're gonna make like a lot of bad jokes and like maybe like say the F word a bunch and like talk about sex and like look out.
Here's the thing: is that I want to make all these same jokes as you. I know that the actual comic books are revered though by certain people, but also like I don't want to have to like deal with DC fans getting mad at me for making these jokes, and that's what this game really says to me is that we're going to deal with more DC fans who are often take these things far too seriously. Whatever. It's Rocksteady.
It feels like we've been waiting so long for the next thing, and then find out, oh, it's Suicide Squad. I'm like, oh, great.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes.
All the IP that Warner Brothers owns or whatever has rights to, and I get it. Like that sequel's coming with James Gunn directing it. Although, like, I didn't see Bird of Prey. I know some people like that, and like that's. I don't. So that's not the Suicide Squad.
No, it's
some of the Suicide Squad members are in it, or is it just Harley Quinn?
I think it's just Harley Quinn, and then she's got yes, you're right. That's
okay.
And then she's got like a new gang, and that one's directed by a woman and written by women, I think. And she's Margot Robbie produced it.
They just announced while we were doing this that whoever directed that is making like the new Pirates of the Caribbean with Margot.
Oh, okay, that makes sense
as the lead. Now, that could be good.
Yes.
But yeah, I have no opinion on Birds of Prey. I haven't seen it, but just Suicide Squad.
Yeah, I mean,
really do without it.
Man, yeah, it's a really bad movie.
I hope you just play as Jared Leto's Joker.
Oh man, that would actually be
And the whole
fantastic.
game is about trying too hard.
Yes, I love this idea. Please.
Oh, that's mean. Okay, sorry.
All right, Curse of the Moon 2, Mike. That was pretty exciting to see. There was a few more of these.
Back on a positive place.
Yeah, there was a few of these like smaller presentations with new games and stuff. Once again, hard to keep track of all this stuff. But one of the highlights from one of them, well, I think this was the New Game Plus Expo, was Curse of the Moon 2, which is the Bloodstained like remake that they did.
The better Bloodstained game.
Really, you don't like Bloodstained?
I'll tell you what. I did not get very far in Ritual of the Night. I didn't. I don't know why. I was excited for it.
I think you gotta skip the story and you gotta just go back and try again.
I think I do. But like it's hard. Yeah, I think so. But like, yeah, the story was really driving me down. I wasn't a big fan of the 3D, 2D aesthetic, and I'm like,
that's fair.
Meanwhile, Curse of the Moon 2 or Curse of the Moon 1, I mean, like, just looks beautiful. It's fun to play the entire time. At no point am I like bored or rolling my eyes.
Right.
So yeah, like more of that, especially like one of the characters is just like a corgi in a mech suit. I'm like, okay,
yeah,
that's a good thing.
So yeah, and I think this is smart of them because a lot of people did like Bloodstained. In the Ritual of the Night, that game, and the Curse of the Moon 1 was also very good. A lot of people like that, and so now to follow that up with another game pretty quickly, it's wise. It keeps the games in people's minds, and these aren't hard to make.
Ritual of the Night 2 is coming. So.
Yeah, for sure. So that was nice to see. Last thing here, and then we can move on to The Last of Us Part 2. Sean Layden speaking to some guy named Dean Takahashi at GameLab.
Whoa, who's that loser?
Yeah, right. I don't know. Probably not very good at video games, I would say. He basically the quote that everyone's taking is that he would welcome a return to 12 to 15 hour AAA games. And he used to work at Sony. He's not in a position to like do this anymore. But I just think it's worth bringing up. They'll be like, do you expect with the next generation of games for The Last of Us Part 2 is 25 hours or so. Is that like the level of game that you expect in the next generation? Or do you think they're going to have to get smaller because like everything else is going to get more expensive, so making content's going to be more expensive?
Yeah, it's weird because we're going to talk about Last of Us a little bit here, but
we could just maybe transition
to it
right
I said
now.
I said I was like 10 hours into it, and part of me is almost like, is this game really going to go on for another like 10 to 15 hours?
Yeah.
Like, because I mean, how long was The Last of Us 1? I feel like, I don't know, it wasn't that long. And I've been playing some PlayStation 2 games, and those are all like nice 10 hours long. And it's just like, man, where did it happen where we used to understand, like, yeah, RPGs are long, it's one of the games, but like, this like game made from whoever, this platformer or shooter, that's going to be like 8 to 12 hours long. And like, and that's not been the case for so long that I don't know if you can suddenly expect people to go back with you. Like, I feel like that if games start trying to be 10 hours long again more regularly, I feel like people are going to complain and somehow turn it into like, this is a bad value. So
yeah,
I don't know. I hate it, but I don't like do I think Horizon 2 is going to be there's no way that's not going to be a longer game than the last one, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, it does feel like it has to be more, and that means it has to be longer. And I agree, that's a bummer. I think, man, 15 hours feels like the right mark for these games if you're trying to like say you're a big game with a lot of value and a lot like in terms of like playtime. You're right. Like I'm like 5 to maybe 6 hours into The Last of Us Part 2. And the idea, like I'm already kind of accepting the fact that like I'm probably never gonna finish this game. It's like I could play like 2 hours every couple of nights, and that's like longer than a month like it would take for me to actually play through the game. So I just don't, by that time no one's going to be talking about it anymore, and it's going to be kind of all it's going to be past. So yeah, I think 15 hours is digestible, and it's still a lot. I think most people, and you could always add like New Game Plus to keep stuff going for people that are super fans or whatever. So I don't know. I think it's the right amount of time, and I do think he's right that it's like games are going to get more expensive. Like, where do you cut back? I think just on the total amount of content, cut back there, that saves a ton of money, and what you have can be super refined and look a lot better and play better or whatever. So
right, I mean, yeah, it certainly seems to be like the solution to that problem, right? Mm-hmm. And it's a solution. Obviously, some people just aren't good. Like, there's no way Rocksteady is going to be like, yeah, we're going to make a $10 Rocksteady, I mean, Rockstar is
Right.
gonna make a 10-hour game now, right?
Right.
Like Grand Theft Auto 6, like they're gonna say it's just the biggest, longest Grand Theft Auto yet, right? Like that's going to happen. Like look how much insanely bigger Red Dead Redemption 2 was from the first one. It's like did it need to be that much bigger?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like it's hard to say yes. I
Yep.
don't know.
Yeah, and I think like a good like when I look to this sort of thing, like Hitman is a really good example because it's like it's open world, but they're very tiny open worlds. But there's a lot of detail happening, a lot of like intricate clockwork movements of people that you can interact with, and you're supposed to like play them over and over and over again to see how these different intricacies, can be affected and changed. And that only works because you're in a relatively small space. And so I think like you get something back by taking away from this overall traditional concept of scale. You can have more detail, and to me that's kind of one of the things I want to see in the next gen. So especially with these improved CPUs, more simulation stuff could be very exciting. All right, but speaking of The Last of Us Part 2, we've both been playing it. I guess you just want to do your quick like take so far.
Yeah, I mean it's hard because like I still don't want to spoil anything.
Yeah,
I
we don't have
guess,
to do
but
that. We're not going to.
yeah, it's weird because whenever I'm playing the game, I like it. It's when I'm not playing the game that I kind of have more negative feelings about it,
Sure, I get
and
that.
like kind of like don't want to go back to it. And like part of it is the oppressiveness of it, right? And I mean, it's by design. And I know I got flack for saying this about Half-Life Alex, but it's pretty similar, right?
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like everything's crappy and ruined, dark and grim, and everything sucks. And it's like it's kind of, especially with everything else, like a week like this, it's kind of draining to inhabit that world for such a long period of time, right? Especially when like before, it's like I was playing Animal Crossing and like Jack and Daxter. And
Right.
now
Yes.
it's like whiplash almost for me. But like it's there's the I hate to say craftsmanship. This sounds so pretentious, but like it's such a well-made game.
Yeah.
I mean, Naughty Dog is just ridiculous with the character models and the animation and the environments. Like it's if it's not the prettiest looking game of this generation, it's got to be up there at least. So that and like and that stuff's not just like curtains to me. Like that does make the experience better. It's like I have
Agreed.
fun seeing how good this stuff looks, and that is certainly a big part of it. And I still think like the gameplay kind of loop of the original Last of Us, like that's very much still here. Like it's mostly a stealth game, and there like ammo scarcity is like actually a thing, so you have to worry about that. And there's kind of like the on the spot crafting. Like, I think that still all feels really good, intense and stuff. So like I'm not sure why I don't love it more. I guess, and I think I can't really. I'm not sure how I totally feel about it still until I beat it. Which again, like I already talked about it right now. Like I'm already wishing that I was closer to an ending.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was wishing things were happening a little faster. Instead, I feel like it's game's really taking its time to do something, and I feel like I know something weird has to happen because everyone's mad about something, and I'm like, it's gotta. Unless it's something that's already happened and they're mad about that, and
I guess
that's
part
really
of it,
stupid.
yeah. I think
But,
that is
like,
what it is. I
Jesus,
think that's the biggest part of it, but I think most of it's just that I mean, this isn't a spoiler. Ellie's a lesbian, and I think most of the people that are hating the game are just homophobic. And
I mean, I tell you, I mean, if you didn't, I mean, like if you had played their first Last of Us in that DLC thing, and you didn't think that Ellie was like potentially a lesbian, like come on.
Yep,
Like, that's shocking.
And if you play this game and you're not like immediately like, man, these characters are actually great. This flirting is really touching. Like, it's there's something wrong with you. It's not something wrong with the game. I think a lot of that stuff's working for me. The characters are working. I'm really interested in the villain characters. I constantly want to see like, okay, what's going to happen next with them. I'm talking around stuff because I don't want to spoil it, but like one of them's named Abby, and like seeing her thing early on, why? What is going on here? Why is she so mad? Like, that stuff that they're singing their hooks into me in terms of like telling a compelling story, in terms of just like the character drama.
But like the plot, and I guess it's not too much of a spoiler here to say that this is a revenge story.
Right.
They were always very clear about that. And I'm like, how interesting is that going to be? And
Yes.
then can a revenge story carry a 25-hour game?
I don't think so.
And that's kind of what I'm interested to see.
So yeah, and I think that's going to be the thing that probably eventually sets me loose of this game is that I get it. You know, you go out for revenge, dig two graves. It's an old saying for a reason. Like we know it, we get it.
Yeah, we get it. We know it. There's been lots of art that has dealt with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that, and like part of it is like I'm thinking about criticism. I've just heard of the game before it even came out,
mm-hmm.
and like one of the things people saying like this game's not really about anything. And part of me, like, there's part of me, it's like, well, you know, whatever. Like Mario Odyssey is not about anything, right? So
yeah,
do we necessarily like the whole game to say? But then there is a different expectation for a game like this also. And when you are kind of going through so much story and so, you know, you're seeing so many great characters, you kind of don't want that stuff wasted on this kind of narrative that isn't necessarily all that interesting, I suppose.
And like, I think
again, I don't know if it's interesting or not yet. I'm not through it.
Right. Yeah. And like, so I see that was the stuff that's working for me. But like, I think like you're touching on another thing where it's like, for me, like Mario Odyssey and a lot of video games, they're not about like the things that movies are always about, like, you know, human beings and their problems. It's about objects and the way that they meet, and when that resistance happens, like what resistance is put on the player because things are like getting in the way, or you know, just physical objects moving through space time, like that's what games are really good at. It's like just physical interactions and the results of those physical interactions. I think that The Last of Us Part 2's stealth action gameplay, it is refined and it is good, but it is very much limited in terms of what you're going to do with it, because it's happening.
Presenting problems for players.
Yeah, it's just putting you in a room that has an obvious solution. You know, it's not like the sandbox that like Metal Gear Solid 5 was, which has similar gameplay. But that was done in an open world, and you could approach things in sort of any direction and come up with these crazy plans. Yeah. And it's like here, it's like I get into the situation where like, oh, there's some clickers or whatever, and there's some people trying to hunt me down, and there's a bottle on the floor. I get what I'm supposed to do here. I'm supposed to get them to fight each other, and then I watch the chaos ensue. And it's those systems are there. These systems of interaction are there to engage with. It is just like, I'm still in a very directed experience, and I'm still in this thing where it's like, the game doesn't want to give me too much of a leash. It's like, you know, we did build these things, we want you to experience them, but it's not your idea. Like, it's the game's idea, and that's for me. That's where it's like, okay, I get it, I played it, and it's really well made, but I don't need to do that over and over again for 25 hours.
I will say that I think the stuff I'm finding the most fun is just kind of these sections where it's more like, here's a bunch of like empty buildings, like go explore those. And I almost kind of like the scavenging aspect the most.
Yeah,
like walking around, or even like something like, you know, I almost wish there's more things like this, but there's a lot of like, here's wow, I forgot the word for a safe for a second. Here's a safe. I want to say lock chest. Here's a lock chest.
It's a better name. I mean, you got it.
Here's a safe. But it's like, oh, what's the code? And sometimes it's real easy. Like, you find a piece of paper, there's a code there. But sometimes it's like, oh, look, here's this person's calendar and their anniversary is marked on it. So maybe that's the code. And it's kind of stuff like that. Like,
did you know that the clicks make a different sound once you get to the right number on the thing? So it's just a slightly different sound. So if you really want to just sit there and brute force it, you can. But it's, you know, it's slightly different. It is obviously easier to just look for the code. But yeah, I
like that one. Like, when you first get, this is the twist way, when you first get to Seattle, it's almost more of an open world for a little bit.
Yeah, and I guess that's the last time I've heard that was it only does it then, and it doesn't go back to that, which I thought was weird.
It felt a lot like, I forget if you played Uncharted: Lost Legacy. It felt a lot like Uncharted: Lost Legacy for a little bit there.
Mm-hmm.
I almost thought that was going to be the format of the game. I thought it was going to be kind of more of these smaller open sections, but yeah, then there hasn't been anything like that since. It's been much more just like the first one in terms of structure.
Yeah, and I think I'm through like the first day of Seattle. I'm on like day 2, so
I just started day 3 to give you an idea. That's
a
good non-spoiler way of saying where you are, at least.
Right. Yeah. And I like the setting. To me, like, I never played through all the way of The Last of Us Part 1. I just read what happened to the story. But like, it still looks a lot like that game. I mean, it looks better, but like Seattle looks a lot like Boston once it's covered in all the green stuff, but it still looks really cool, and it is still cool to explore, and there is so much detail that it is rewarding to go look for stuff. And you're right, all that is working for me as well. I just think yeah, if this just turns out to be revenge is bad, and if you go for revenge, you're the real monster in this world of monsters, that's going to be very disappointing. And I can already tell that the gameplay is just sort of it's ho hum for me.
Right. See, no, I like the gameplay more than you do, but I agree I agree with that point about revenge and so forth. But I will say, I know we talked about this before about like how violent the trailers were, and so far it seems like the trailers were more violent than the game itself.
Yeah,
and I think that's just the context. Like again, like the actual on-screen violence isn't bothering me nearly as much as it did just seeing it out of context in the middle of like a Sony PlayStation E3 briefing or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely, and like some violent deaths happen, and it's like, oh, that would
expect that. It's
this
kind of game.
Yeah, and it's like wow, that is graphic, but the game is leading up to this. You understand like what's happening in terms of like the potential to die and how angry all these people are, and so when you have all that context put around something, it's like, okay, this is it makes sense, and seeing it, it's like, well, I knew this is where we were going to end up, and you're right, it's completely different than E3. Yeah, I don't know. I need to keep playing it, but like I am I do want to keep kind of going back right now for the characters. I do find myself thinking about like, oh, I want to see what this next section's going to be like. And like there's some flashbacks here or there, and I'm like, oh, playing through those is cool. Like because it's like spending time with these characters is actually nice. They're well acted and stuff. I guess I don't expect the combat to open up any more than it has in terms of like really just letting you loose.
I guess that's the other reason why I'm like surprised that like I feel there's like twice as much game left, because I feel like I've basically have gameplay wise done everything there is to do necessarily.
Yeah.
And part of me is like being spoiled with like something like Mario Odyssey where there's like something new constantly. And like that's kind of my big takeaway here, I guess, is like why maybe I'm sounding more like, oh, this is an 8 and not like, 10 out of 10 best game ever. It's just I'm starting to drift more towards like these really gamey games, right?
Yeah.
Like if you ask me, like my favorite genres right now are like 3D platformers and like RPGs and that's kind of stuff like that. And like these kind of highly cinematic game experiences like this, I still like them, and there's some I still like really like a lot. Like I liked Spider-Man a lot. I love Uncharted, obviously, but like I'm not quite as like head over heels for them as maybe I once was. Maybe that's like part of going back to like, something like Cyberpunk. Like, why am I not crazy excited about this? I'm like, I mean, maybe that's just next kind of thing like this. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. I think Sony's going to keep doing these prestige games, and they haven't been for me for a while.
Yeah,
but when
they're good.
Yeah, and they're good at it for that audience, and there's obviously a huge audience for it. And it's like Last of Us, it really is gigantic in terms of its popularity. Like it reaches far beyond like traditional gaming fans.
Getting that HBO TV show, right?
Yeah, and like the host of Wait, Don't Tell Me on NPR was just tweeting about how much he loved the first game and he can't wait for the sequel. And it's like that's the game he plays. It's that sort of game, and so it's like with this game, I wouldn't change it. I think it's probably going to satisfy most of the people that of the whatever 15 million people end up buying the game. I think most of them are going to be happy with it. There are the weirdos out there that just seem to hate it because they're homophobic, but they're going to hate it no matter what. But like it's going to satisfy that audience, and I'm like standing back and being like, it's not for me. It's clearly well made. It's clearly a good game. It's not for me. I think maybe the story it could end up being bad. But it's overall like it's a good game. It's not like Red Dead Redemption 2 is my example of a game that I think is poorly made. I don't think it's a good video game.
I like Red Dead Redemption 2 more than this even. I came around. I think I started feeling like I do right now with Red Dead Redemption 2, then I really came around to it by the end. So.
I feel like I played enough.
No, it's fine that you don't like Red Dead.
Yeah, God of War was like a closer where it's like God of War, like it's not for me, but I could see why it's a good game. It's well made, and I wouldn't change it. But like Yeah, I just think that this game is closer to that in terms of like, yeah, it should be exactly what it is. It's going to sell great, and people deserve to have these kinds of games. There's not a lot of people making games like this, so
Oh, no, not really.
Sony wants to keep doing it. They should, and I'm glad it's succeeding for them because that means they'll keep doing it in the future. Even if they continue not to be for me, like a Spider-Man is, and I'll get the next, I'll get Miles Morales and then Spider-Man 2, and I'll be happy with that. So
There you go.
yeah, I'll keep playing it. Maybe we'll do a check-in next week, see how we're feeling.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll beat it eventually.
Yeah. But yeah. So look forward to that. But I think that's gonna be it for this week, Mike. Why don't we wrap up this episode?
Yeah, let's do it.
Tell people where they can find you on the internet.
You can find me on Twitter at Tolkoto, Tolkoto, and my Disney podcast, which is 90s Disney at 90sdisney.com, and wherever you find podcasts.
And I am at Jeff Grubb on Twitter. You can get me on twitch.tv/Jeff Grubb and youtube.com/Jeffrey Grubb. And my other podcast is How Games Make Money. A new episode went up earlier today. That episode was an interview with Jeffrey Thompson Jr., who is one of the founders of Epoch Media. He is a Black American in an accelerator program in Poland, and he's trying to be the first Black American to get VC funding in Poland. We talk all about that. It's a good episode. Check that out. But yeah, otherwise, thank you for listening. We'll be back with another new episode next week. Until then, have a good one, and goodbye.
Bye.